Hey there, it's Bobby, aka Paginator, and today we are doing a book tag. This is the book acquiring tag, and I was tagged by Janie over at the Crafting Bookworm. And we're just gonna dive on in. This is more of a discussion tag. I'm not gonna probably be pulling books to show you throughout these questions, but let's jump on in. Number 1, do you plan your book purchases ahead or impulse buy? A little bit of both. Sometimes I want a certain book and we'll go with that book in mind, or order it through someone. But I also just really love being in the moment and like, what book's gonna call to me? You know, what book am I gonna see? And like, I like being surprised by finding books that I maybe wouldn't normally have looked for. Question number 2, how do you decide what books to buy? First and foremost, they have to sound interesting to me. The plot needs to sound like it has a lot of potential to be entertaining. I also will look for books with my students in mind frequently, not always, but a lot of times I like to be able to pass on my books that I'm reading to my students, put them in my classroom library, and allow them to check them out and enjoy them for themselves. So sometimes I will buy books that are geared for adults or that I know are not going to be appropriate for my students, but that I can still enjoy. But a lot of times I want to look more for ones that we can both enjoy. So I think I'll probably live in the YA/middle grade book world for quite a while. Because of that. Plus, don't you think that YA and middle grade books are good? They just are. When it comes to like being in this store and like, okay, I've got this book and this book, it really is a gut feeling. It's which one do I think is going to be the most enjoyable? Question number 3, what is your philosophy on where you shop? Online versus in person, large versus small, physical, digital, or audio, new versus used? So there's a lot of parts to this question. I do really like to shop in person. Unfortunately, there are no bookstores where I live. The closest one is an hour away and it's teeny tiny, not very good selection. So the first proper one is 2 hours in the other direction. But I do love being in a bookstore. I was in Barnes & Noble yesterday and it was just like, so lovely. Having said that, I'm glad I don't live near one because then I'd be there all the time. If I have a certain book that I'm looking for, I just need a copy of for my classroom library, or, you know, I just really want to read that specific book, a lot of times I will just hop online and order it because it's a lot easier for me to get that way. In terms of large stores versus small stores, I would ultimately prefer to support small businesses when I can. My favorite bookstore in the world, the King's English, is a small business. It's independent. It's lovely. They host all kinds of fun book events there, but I can't always get all the way to Salt Lake City to support them. So sometimes I do end up at a closer bookstore, closer to me, which is probably going to be Barnes & Noble. When I was in college, the town where I lived and had like lived my whole life, they had a bookstore that was a Borders, they had a Hastings, and then they had an independent one called the Book Table. And so I would kind of like rotate between those, but now they only have the Book Table because the other 2 chains have gone bye-bye. Physical, digital, or audio. I always prefer physical. My second choice would be audio. Digital books I have a very hard time reading because staring at the screen for such a long time, it gives me headaches, and I also like, I don't know, it pulls me out of the story. I just can't get fully sucked in on digital books most of the time. And new versus used, that just entirely depends on the book. Most of the time I end up buying the books I want, so I end up with new copies, but I don't mind used copies either. I will check out books from my library, which of course are going to be used books, and I have shopped at used bookstores before. I wouldn't say I overly buy at used bookstores, but I wouldn't say no. Question number 4, what about little free libraries? What do you think of them? Have you used one? Why or why not? I have a little free library. It's currently not out. It's usually on the road just outside my house, but the glass window in the door broke, and I think it was hit by like a snowplow or something during the winter time. So it's in my garage awaiting repair. but as soon as it gets fixed, I will be putting it back out there. It's been really fun, and a lot of kids in the neighborhood use it, and people like, it's the only little free library here, I believe. So people from out of town that live more out in the rural road, not that my town isn't rural, but you know what I mean, like outskirts of town, they will sometimes come in and bring books and stuff too. So as soon as I can get that fixed, I'm going to put it back out there. I think they're great things for people to be able to share books. You can't go wrong, right? Number 5, how do you feel after acquiring new books? Do you share in a book haul or other way? I feel joyful. I feel excited. I feel hopeful for the reading experience that I hope I have. And I usually do share in a book haul. I don't always share my book of the month purchases in a book haul. For example, in my May book of the month box, I got this book here, which I have not put in a haul. But I do have a haul page in my bullet journal, and it's recorded there. So I record all the books that I buy in my bullet journal, and most of them I share in haul videos. This one, by the way, very cool. I saw a copy of this in Barnes & Noble with sprayed edges. It was pretty. Question number 6, how do you feel looking at your books that you haven't read? Does it matter if it's currently a lot or a small amount? Sometimes I feel like this little twinge of guilt, like, oh, I really don't need to have this many unread books, but most of the time it just makes me happy. I mean, I have beautiful bookshelves full of books that can take me anywhere, and it's like I was saying earlier, there's this potential or this hope for the reading experience that you might have, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's almost like I have my own little bookstore because I've got this section that hasn't been read and I can just go pick, you know? It's fun. Question number 7, how do you decide what number of unread books is the right amount? I don't know how to answer this question. I don't think there is a right amount. It's entirely dependent on the person. For me personally, because I am a teacher and I have that big wide open summer break, I like to have a lot of unread books available to me to choose because I spend days and days just reading. It's so nice. Oh, of course, since I started junk journaling, I'm kind of balancing between reading and crafting, but that's okay because with audiobooks, you can do both at the same time. But yeah, number of unread books, like, I don't know why that matters. Like, I don't think there should be a right amount. Number 8, do you have a TBR game or process for reading them? So yes, I absolutely have a TBR game. If you've watched my channel at all before, you know that I've been doing TBR games for years. You guys, are you ready for an exciting announcement? In my May TBR video, I asked you guys to vote for what kind of TBR game you'd like me to play for the summer. And I had a Google form for you to fill out with some options, and I have closed that form now. And the option that we're gonna go with is TBR Pursuit. It's like Trivial Pursuit. It is inspired by the lovely Jade at JD Roy Reads. I don't think she even plays it anymore. But I have taken and adapted it. I've made some Trivial Pursuit style cards to fit with, you know, the colors on my board and that kind of stuff. I have just an old Trivial Pursuit board game that I got from the thrift store. And I think it'll be really fun, so we'll start doing that in June. I really like TBR games. I always leave myself an out though. Like, for example, if I get a book in my TBR game and I'm really not feeling it, I can swap it out for something else that matches that prompt. And then if I finish all of my TBR books, then of course I have the rest of the month to just mood read or whatever I want to do in that regard. Number 9, do you have a book buying problem? If so, what is the nature of it and can it be adjusted? Now this varies from time to time. Lately, I've been doing pretty well. Once in a while, I will head to an actual bookstore and I will have a certain amount of money that I have earmarked to spend in that time. I haven't ordered books online, except for one I ordered today, oddly enough. In a long, long time. I have my regular Fairy Loot and Owl Crate that come every month. And then I hit a bookstore once in a while. But honestly, a lot of what I've been doing in the last few months especially is just pulling unread books off my shelf. So I feel like I'm improving in that. I do have a tendency to impulse spend. I will say that with my anxiety disorder, if I get in like a really bad headspace, sometimes I will find the dopamine rush of like putting something in your shopping cart to like help me. And a lot of times I will put stuff in the cart and then delete it and talk myself out of buying it. I'm getting a lot better at that kind of thing, but sometimes you just have to pull the trigger and get things. The one book I did buy online today is the next volume in the Lore Olympus series. I didn't realize it was out, and I didn't see it when I was at the bookstore yesterday, so if I had seen it there, I would have bought it. But you know what? That's okay. The last item or question, I guess, number 10 says, tag some folks. I'm gonna go ahead and tag Lexi from Alexandra Roslin, and then also just throw it out to everybody else here who sees this and would like to join in. I will have the questions in the description space below, and tags to Janie's channel, as well as the original tag, which is Ginger Bibliophile. And yeah, so if Lexi happens to see this tag and does it, that will make me so happy. But she is a busy gal, so if she doesn't, then not a big deal. This was kind of fun to think about, like acquiring books, and it's also reminded me that I haven't gone and checked out a book from the library in a while, so I'm gonna try to do that later this week. Our town library is kind of weird. There's only 2 days that it's open after school. So maybe one of those days I'll get over there. But I better wrap up this tag. Thank you again to Janie for tagging me, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful, magical, and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.